Okay, last video showed you how to multiply a binomial elevated to the second power. Now we're going to learn how to factor perfect square trinomials. So this one is a perfect square trinomial, and I know that because if I can, the first term and the last terms are both perfect squares, and then this one can be obtained by multiplying twice the product of the square root of the first term and the last term. If you remember what you did on the last video, then this should not be that confusing. But anyway, let's go ahead and factor this. To factor this, we're going to square root the first term. So the square root of 9x squared is 3x. We're going to square root the last term. So the square root of 4 is 2. And we're going to use the symbol of the second term. So it's going to be 3x minus 2. And this is elevated to the power of 2. And if you want to double check your work to make sure that this one was indeed a perfect square trinomial, you can always expand this one, multiply it, and see if you get the original trinomial. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to get the square of the first term. So that is 9x squared. Then twice the product plus twice the product of the first term times the second term. So 3x times negative 2 is negative 6x plus the square of the last term. So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Once we simplify, it will be 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. And then that will be the answer, which happens to be the original trinomial we had. So then yes, we are correct. This is the factored form of 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. Let's go ahead and work on another one. Let's say that we have 4t squared plus 36t plus 81. So we're going to factor the first term, not factor, square root the first term. The square root of 4t squared is 2t. The square root of the last term is 9. We use the symbol of the second term, and then we square this. Okay, one more, but go ahead and pause the video so you can work on it on your own, and then unpause the video once you are done, okay? So 4t squared minus 36t plus 81. So again, pause the video. Once you're done, unpause it. Okay, so the answer should be 2t minus 9 squared. Okay, now on the last video we also learned how to multiply the difference of two squares. So now we're going to learn how to factor them. Let's say that I have x squared minus 36. This is called the difference of two squares. Why? Because this one is a perfect square, so is the last term, and we are subtracting them. So it is called the difference of two squares. To factor them, we're going to square root the first term. So the square root of x squared is x. The square root of the second term is 6. And I'm going to write two binomials. One of them will be positive. The other one will be negative. So x plus 6 times x minus 6. And that's that. You're done. Now go ahead and try 25x squared minus 64. Now be aware, this only works because it is a difference of two squares. There has to be a subtraction sign. If these ones are not subtracting, then you do not have a difference of two squares. Therefore, you cannot factor it like this. So go ahead and pause the video, work on it, and then unpause it once you're done. Okay, the answer is 5x plus 8 times 5x minus 8. Why? Because the square root of 25x squared is 5x. The square root of 64 is 8. Now one last example. Let's say that we have 3x squared minus 75. And you can tell me, well, None of them are perfect squares, and you will be correct. None of them are. However, they do have a common factor. The common factor is 3. So I'm going to factor out the 3. So if I factor out the 3, I'm going to end up with 3 times x squared minus 25. And what do you know? Now we do have a difference of two squares, so we can factor this. So the answer will be 3x plus 5 x minus 5. And that's it. That's today's lesson.